Hi readers, today I'm going to be going over all of my May reads. So all the books that I read in May, I'm going to be counting them down from my least favorite all the way to my favorite. I don't usually talk about them in order of favorites, but I thought I would try something new this month. So really quick, in case you don't know me, my name's Chris. I do weekly book reviews, book box unboxing videos, and all sorts of bookish stuff with my little furry friends who may or may not make an appearance at some point during this video. So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to start at the bottom with my least favorite read of May. And that was the book that I reviewed most recently, Siege and Storm. Now, this was an ebook, so I don't have a physical copy, but I just reviewed this one a few days ago, Friday. If you did not see that full-length review, I'll put a link for it up above. But basically, overall, I found that book very disappointing. So this was the sequel to Shadow and Bone, which I liked, but I did have some problems with, and I was hoping that those problems were going to be resolved in this second book, but they were not. In fact, I think the problems probably got worse in this second book. So yeah, Siege and Storm was my least favorite read of May because, again, it was so disappointing. It did not meet my expectations, etc., etc., etc. I go into a lot more detail about it on my review, so I don't know what else I can say about it that I haven't already said. I'm going to move on to my number 5th book of May, and that is going to be Redqueen by Victoriaaveyard. Aveyard. So Redqueen is another YA fantasy tale. Again, I did do an in-depth review on this one, but basically in this world we have two different types of people. We have red-blooded people who are like normal average humans like you and me, and then there are silver-blooded people and they all have superpowers. And of course, because they have powers, the silvers kind of oppress the reds. That's a very like simple baseline on what Redqueen was about. And after reading this, I started noticing that a lot of YA fantasy kind of all has the same setup. There's always two groups of people that are being oppressed and the people that are the oppressors. That's going to come up a lot in this video, and Redqueen is no different. So it gave me very Hunger Games vibes. Like in the Hunger Games, you have the capital of Panem, which is like, you know, all the rich people, and then you have the people that live in the districts. They're being oppressed, and they are the poor people. So I didn't mind that setup in Redqueen, but the thing that I did mind was the romance. Now, of course, YA fantasy, there's always going to be a little bit of romance. Hold that thought 1 second. Jack says that if he was in a YA romance, then he would be the heartthrob character. Isn't that right, Jack? Yes, that's right. You would be the heartthrob character. All right, I'm gonna put you over here for now. So anyway, the romance in Redqueen is like above and beyond anything that I've seen before. So again, I feel like a lot of these books do the same thing where you have a young girl who's like, oh, I'm just an average girl, but really I'm special and I have special powers, and that one is no different. We have Mare Barrow. She's our main character. She is a red-blooded girl, an average human who finds out that she actually has this power. Not explained why some reds seem to have some powers. Maybe they do in later books, I don't know. But anyway, the point I was trying to make, focus, is that, so Mare Barrow has not 1, not 2, but 3 different love interests in this book. 2 princes and 1 like childhood sweetheart type friend. And that was just way too much for me. I was like, it really made me roll my eyes and groan a lot. So that is why I put this one slightly lower than my number 4 pick. But I will say that number 5 and number 4 were very, very, very close, and I just pushed the next one over the line just a little bit. So I'm going to jump into my number 4 pick, which is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaatahir. So this was actually a buddy read that I did with Kristen's Reading Nook over on Instagram. I will link her handle down below. And this was the first buddy read that I ever did, and I had so much fun because I love reading books with other people, and you can kind of, you know, chit-chat back and forth while you're reading it. And something that we both noticed about An Ember in the Ashes is, again, it has a lot of references to other YA fantasies that have come before it. Like, I literally had a handwritten list going on that said, oh, that's a Hunger Games reference. Oh, that's a Harry Potter reference. Oh, that's a Maze Runner reference. Just to give you an example, there is a school in this book, a school that trains these warrior type people, and long story short, they have to complete these trials, and each trial represents a certain characteristic that an emperor should have. So there's things like courage, loyalty, wit, ambition, and I'm like, those are literally the 4 Hogwarts houses. So there's things like that. So anyway, I probably should have said this first, but the setup of Ember and Ashes is, again, we have 2 different groups of people. We have the scholars, the Scholar Empire, that is being oppressed by the Martial Empire. And the reason that they're being oppressed, I guess, is basically the Martial Empire has all of the weapons. So they make all the steel, and they also control all the knowledge. So the scholars used to be these like very intelligent community, but now they don't have access to information anymore, and that is what keeps them oppressed and keeps them from fighting back against the Martial Empire. So again, we have 2 main characters in this book. One is this girl, Leia is her name. She is a scholar girl, and in the very beginning of the book, her brother gets imprisoned by the Martial Empire. So in order to get him out, she makes a deal with the Resistance to help her. But the Resistance is kind of shady. Again, very Hunger Games vibes, and their Resistance didn't always do things on the up and up. Same thing here. And then the other character is Elias, and he is a member of the Martial Empire, and he is a member of this school where they train these elite warriors. But of course, Elias wants to escape the school and escape the whole empire altogether. So again, I did have some problems with this book, just like I did with Red Queen. Again, I already did a review on this one. If you want to listen to it, I go more in depth. I will link it above. But long story short, there were some interesting characters in here, especially a lot of the side characters. I didn't like the main characters as much as I liked a lot of the side characters, which I feel like is true for a lot of these books. And also, besides the fact that I could list all the different the references to other books, there were also a lot of things in here that felt very random to me. So, for example, there's a character who randomly gets a superpower, and it's like, well, no one else in this world that we've met so far has a supernatural power, so it doesn't really make any sense why this one character would randomly have some supernatural power. It's never answered why. It's never answered. There's a lot of unanswered questions in this book, and that is why it is lower on my list. Again, the only thing that pushed this slightly over Red Queen was the strength of the side characters. Moving on to my number 3 favorite book of the month, and, oh, hold on. Someone's nibbling my toes again. Oh, thank you, Snowball. You want to help me introduce book number 3? Book number 3 is going to be Gutted by Nicolebates. Again, I already did a review on this one, but this is actually an independent book, so independently published. Nicolebates is an author that I follow. She follows me over on Instagram. She sent me a copy of this book in exchange for a review. Now, again, it's a very short book, and basically the setup of the book is we have a young woman who's about to become a mother for the first time. And in this world, the survival rate of babies is incredibly low. So, you know, not only does our main character here have to worry about becoming a new mom, but she also has to worry about whether or not her baby's actually going to survive. So she goes to this new high-tech hospital. It's supposed to be the best place, the best equipment, the best doctors, etc., etc. She ends up giving birth to a healthy baby girl, and that baby is immediately taken away from her because the doctors are basically like, hey, how did she have a healthy baby out of nowhere? We need to find out what's going on, so they take the baby. So this leaves our main character to have to figure out how to escape from this high-tech hospital that she's in and go on a quest to try and get her new baby back. I really enjoyed this story. Like I said, it was a very quick read. It was a little sci-fi read, and I really enjoyed it. My only small complaint that I had, which is why this is not higher, is that it was a little bit slow in the beginning. So like the whole setup that I gave you, it does take a little while to actually get to the baby napping part, which is what the story is all about. But once that happens, you know, everything that happens after that point is really exciting. Watching her, you know, just like an average person who has to kind of rely on their own intuition and their own strength, both physical strength and inner strength, to, you know, fight her way out of this hospital and then go on the search for her baby because, well, I don't want to give anything away, but never mind. Again, this was a very personal story for this author. There is, if you ever end up reading this book, I would say read the little acknowledgement at the beginning, read the little acknowledgement at the end, because she does talk a little bit about her personal life, and I do think that helps make a connection between the story and the author, and I thought that was really a really good connection to make. So number 3, Gutted. I can't remember if I said this or not. I'll edit it out later if I didn't, but full review, I'll link it above if you want to check it out. My second favorite book that I finished in May, I did not read this whole thing in May, is the Children of Dhara Omnibus by Terry Goodkind. Now, this is actually 5 novellas combined into one. So the Children of Dhara series was originally published as 5 individual books, or they're called novellas because they're very short books. And then in March, they were republished in this omnibus edition. Again, this book was sent to me by a publicity company in exchange for a review. I had already gotten the first 2 or 3 books in the series, and I probably will get the other individual ones at some point because I love Terry Goodkind and I want to have a complete collection, but I wasn't going to turn down a brand new omnibus version of this. So, full disclosure, I did a video a while ago on my top read authors, and Terry Goodkind is my number 1 top read author because he is one of my favorite authors of all time. I'm a huge fan of the Sword of Truth series. I'm a huge fan of the Chronicles of Nikki. I'm a huge fan of pretty much anything Terry Goodkind has done, and this is no exception. Again, I went into specific details about this in my review. I'll link that for you. But basically, I am totally biased when it comes to Terry Goodkind, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not. And was this story perfect? No, it's not perfect, and that's why it's not my number 1. But it is my number 2 because, like I said, I'm totally biased. I love Terry Goodkind. I love the characters in the story. I love the world in this story, and I love being able to go back to them. Also, I will mention, if you're not familiar with Terry Goodkind, he did pass away last year. It was not COVID related. It was other health issues, but the fact that this is like his last published series for now also makes it very special to me because he is one of my favorite authors. So that is why The Children of Dhara was number 2 for May. And last but not least, we come to my #1 read of May, a book that I have not yet reviewed, but will be coming soon, and that is The Nightingale by Kristinhannah. This is my first Kristinhannah book, and I knew that I wanted to read something from her after seeing her name, everywhere. I've always seen her books everywhere, and since joining Instagram, I've seen her name everywhere. I picked this up at a used book sale sometime last year. Finally decided to give it a try, and oh my goodness. If you're not familiar, the basic setup is that there are two sisters, Vienne and Isabelle, two young women who are living in France when the Germans occupy France during World War II. Both of the sisters, basically, they don't get along in the beginning of the book. They fight a lot. They've both been through some things in their life. They had a mother who died when they were very young. They had a father who kind of abandoned them, didn't pay attention to them, and they both dealt with that in their own ways. So Vienne is the more quiet and reserved and orderly one, and then Isabelle is the more wild, rebellious one. And even though on the surface these two sisters seem like total opposite ends of the spectrum, I actually found that they had a lot more in common than it seemed, because at the end of the day, both sisters did what they thought they needed to do in order to survive during this time. I cannot tell you how many different feelings I had while reading this book. And if you've read it, I'm sure you understand, because first of all, the time period that this takes place in, German occupied France, World War II, is not pleasant. There are so many atrocities, and you can't help but wonder in your head when you're reading it, how many people suffered through these same things. I mean, we're talking everything from not being able to get food, to losing electricity, to concentration camps. There's some very, very heavy things that happen in this book. And then on the other side of it, though, you have characters who are both strong and resilient in their own way. We have, I don't want to go into too many details because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but let me just say that by the end of this book, yes, I was sobbing. I was a total mess, in complete tears. In fact, this book was so heavy that I am not reading another historical fiction now, I think, until August. I had to pick a YA romance after this because I just needed something a little bit lighter, because it's a very heavy read. But yes, it's a very, very good read. And I did wonder, how accurate it was. I know that some of the things that the book is fiction, it is made up, but a lot of the plot points are based on real life experiences. So it's up to you what you take out of it or not. Again, I got really invested in it, so it just, it really broke my heart in places. It didn't make me laugh really so much. It made me cry. It made me, it was just an amazing book, an amazing read. I'm so glad I read it. I am definitely interested in reading more from Kristinhannah. So if you have any Kristinhannah recommendations, please share them in the comments section below. So those are the 6 books that I finished in May. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. I do new reviews every Wednesday, new videos on Sundays, and sometimes extra videos on Friday. All right, everyone, happy reading.